Sorting Through Life with Colleen Waterston on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I am Colleen Waterston, and this show is brought to you by Space Organizing, my Twin Cities-based home organizing business. And we come on every week to talk about different things sorting through life related to our stuff, related to the things, the emotions around our stuff, and all things organizing life. And today I am so excited to have my guest, Julie Martella. And the topic that we're talking about might not seem the most exciting, but it's really about the stuff and sorting through the stuff of grief. Julie is an author, speaker, and resilience strategist, and the founder of Navigating Widowhood. Julie delivers keynote speeches and workshops and blends personal narratives with actionable insights, aiming to normalize conversations around grief and inspire transformation. And today we are fortunate to have this powerhouse woman here with us today. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Navigating Widowhood. So how did you come up with this title? How did you come up with this business? You've also written a book, The Weight of Our Things, I have here with me, and this is Navigating Emotions and Possessions After the Loss of Your Loved One. And you have your second book, if you can introduce that for us.
I do. I have, I wish there was something I could do. And this is a practical guide to supporting grievers, which came about because so many people came to me and said, what do I do? How do I support my friend or my mom or my grandma who lost somebody? And so I decided, let's talk about it.
And I'm buying that book after I get off the air today with you. But we're going to dive into how to support yourself as a widow. And then in our last segment, we'll talk about how to support a widow and how to support and how best to, and what not to do, because sometimes that is just as important as what to do. But you are a past member of NAPO, and in your book, you call yourself a home strategist, and you have a lot of information around what to do with physical items in a home. And you've coached clients in kind of like the strategic approach to take with their stuff based on different reasons. But then now today you're really calling yourself a resilience strategist. So what does that mean?
So a resilience strategist is just an evolution of the home strategist. When we look at home strategy, we look at how do we apply strategy to the home? How do we apply strategic thinking and make a plan to our home and to our personal lives? So when I work with widows, we're not just working on the home, we're working on who am I now? What does my evolution look like? How do I move forward, right? We're answering those questions, and that takes strategy. What I have learned in the years since I've been doing this is that resilience is the underlying theme, and it goes across the work. It doesn't matter if you're widowed or if you're a woman or if you're a farmer out in a field. Everyone needs resilience, and it's the same set of skills. It's just applied in a different situation.
Well, and that gets into two things I haven't mentioned about your background. You live on a farm in California.
Yes.
You have you have a big almond tree.
Walnuts.
Yes. Walnut farm. And then you are a life coach. You've gone through the certification, and you're very, and I tell people the difference between a therapist and a life coach.
Yes, and that's super important. A life coach kind of takes over or kind of polishes off after therapy has been done. You've got to be in a good place to benefit from coaching. A therapist helps you. So in the world of widows and in loss, the therapist helps you process your trauma. And they can take you all the way through, but a coach helps you look at, all right, you've processed your trauma. Now what? What are your thoughts? Like, what's going on in your world? What's holding you back? What do you want to work on? And then we go from there. but definitely both have a place, and I have a wonderful therapist at all times. So
I was gonna ask if they overlap because you're saying,
yes.
they take over after, but, like,
Yeah.
that could be subject by subject, they take over
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
It's not like, "Oh, I'm done with therapy. Now I'm going to
Right.
level 2 and I go to life coaching." It's like they're just
Yeah.
different, that
Yeah.
and I think, you do it's navigating widowhood, and you absolutely have been and are continuing to be such an asset to the community of widows and people who are going through the emotions of loss after the death of their partner. But what you talk about, and I think resilience and this strategy and this is that you got to know where you're going. I often say I'm an interventionist. When I go into someone's house as the with space by space, we're working with people, on a whole home transformation or on a big space transformation. And I'm not coming in every week. I'm coming in once. I'm
Yeah.
taking things apart. You refer to the big sort. We call things the big sort, the big evaluation, the big rearrange. I'm coming in and I'm helping people to really tackle something, and then
Yeah.
I move on. It's not like, oh, goodbye forever. It's just like, you should be good in this space without me. Now we can move on to somewhere else in the house, or we can just stay in touch as,
Yeah.
past
Yeah.
past people. But that strategist, like, so I'm holding a vision for a project inside someone's home to help them through it. But like, I'm seeing that end result. I think what you're referring to of that strategy is like, where are you going? You talk a lot about like someone's vision for themselves and like what they want. And it can be, you're kind of helping them define the roadmap to get there.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the path. If you just say, I'd like this to happen, but you have no idea how you're going to do it, you kind of wander for a
Yeah.
while. And
Yeah.
sometimes wandering can be okay. But what I gather from someone hiring you, and you're doing this all remote, you can be hired from
Yeah.
anybody
Yes.
around the
Yeah.
world, but
Yeah.
you're that person who's holding space for the strategy to get where someone wants to get. Is that correct?
Yes, and I am the person who holds the mirror and asks the questions, right? Someone has to hold up the mirror to you in your life and ask you and help you see what is actually happening, right?
Mhm.
What matters most right now? What can I control, and what's my next best move based on my skills, my desires, right? And I love to talk about really getting connected with my future self, right?
Mhm.
So for example, future, I turned 55 this year. I'm like officially a senior citizen. So I think about, what does senior citizen Julie need to be a thriving 80-year-old?
I
Okay.
mean, looking at you, we need to change the age entry of that because
I
you are the
know, I
least
know.
least likely to be called a
I'm a
senior
I'm a
citizen.
baby senior citizen. So but we look at, what do we need, right? To create this intentional future. What are the steps that need to be taken? And someone just needs to hold up the mirror so that people can say, "Oh yeah, that is what's going on. That is what I need to do." Right?
So then specifically with loss,
Mhm.
navigating widowhood, there's an implicit loss in there. There's a loss of a person
Yes.
and there's that grief. So
Yes.
talk to me just about that grief in someone's life and like working through grief and being able to see a future that's so different
Yeah.
from the one that you thought you had. And you talk a lot in this, and you've keynoted and spoken. If you go to YouTube, you can watch Julie talk to fellow widows at Camp Widow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's people, of all sorts of different losses, sudden, prolonged, people who get a phone call and their life is never the same, and people who spend years alongside somebody on, a health journey that ends in that eventual loss. So you've been immersed in this community. So you've been around people who experience this loss on all those levels and all of those situations. But like what would be commonalities within grief? Like what is there that's notable from people, you know, taking in that moment of like, life's not going to go the way that I wanted it to,
Yeah.
and there's no way of negotiating it otherwise. Like, this person is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So grief, you kind of nailed it. grief is a very universal experience, but it happens at an individual level. Everyone experiences grief, and everyone experiences grief differently, because the person who took care of someone who had cancer for 8 years, it's a very different experience than someone who had a massive heart attack and was gone in 5 minutes. So and we have label, right? Like in the world of grief therapy, there's labels for different types of grief. But basically, grief is our response to loss. And grief is what happens when the life we expected and the life we actually are living are no longer the same. And so in our minds, everyone has this idea, this magical invisible plan A. This is how my life's going to go. This is what's going to happen. This is the timeline. I got it all planned out. When that doesn't happen and loss interrupts that story, that is the hardest part of grief, because you had a story and your brain is trained and your brain's like, I know where to go. And then suddenly that story is interrupted. And then the brain says, wait, I don't know what to do. And one of the hardest parts of widowhood is recognizing and accepting that plan A is no longer an option. And that realization can feel so cruel. And so from that realization, we have to begin, once we accept it and we finally, it's kind of like hitting rock bottom, because for a while there's this time of magical thinking, like if I keep everything the same, they might be coming back. And there comes a point when everyone realizes they're not coming back. And when that happens, we are left with the question, what can I build with the life that remains? And that question is either the thing that is your quicksand, because some people say, I'm not building anything, I am sitting around waiting for my turn. Or it becomes your catalyst and your pivot to create not a new and better life, but a life that honors the love that you had. And to look at, because really you've survived one of the worst possible things that will ever happen to you. So when you have that, you have that on your back, you've got your back. You're like, let's do it. What else can happen? What else are you going to do to me? I've already experienced the worst thing. So now let's go create a life. Let's go build something that honors the love.
And we're going to talk about that, the physical stuff and the getting through it from physical and beyond. But you mentioned the brain, and a lot of your work, you have had a traumatic brain injury.
Yes.
And so you've navigated widowhood, but before that you were navigating a different brain, from the perspective of a brain that didn't work the same for you. But a lot of your book and a lot of your podcast episodes, you speak to what's going on in the brain, and you really seem to almost use that as like this is just what it is. This is the truth about how our brain processes life. You can't get around it. This is what science tells us. So give us a little glimpse into how the brain is connected to navigating that loss, or navigating that idea that we have to work through this, we have to rewire how we're going about things to this new scenario that we're in.
Yes. So I think when you understand the brain, you can give yourself a break, because everyone thinks I'm doing this wrong, I should be doing this better. But the reality is you're doing a great job. Grief consumes your mental capacity. Grief consumes, right? We have the prefrontal cortex in the front. That is the part of our brain that makes us beautifully human and allows us to negotiate and take turns and make decisions. And then in the back of the brain, next to the core, the brain stem, we have the primitive brain. And that was the brain that kept us alive. And that's the brain that is actually the strongest part of the brain, because it's tied into survival. And when we have a grief experience, the prefrontal cortex gets knocked offline. It's called the executive brain. It gets knocked offline, and the primitive brain takes over. And so you're not making good decisions. You're not managing your time. You're spinning around in circles. You're asking questions over and over. That's not you doing a bad job. That is you being hijacked, right? That's your brain being hijacked by the primitive brain. And the primitive brain is just trying to protect you. The primitive brain doesn't understand that you'll be okay. And so the grieving person is going to struggle with concentration, memory, planning, sequencing, and decision making. And we call these things widow's fog or grief fog. In reality, it's the brain trying to figure it out. The brain is trying to process a reality that it was not prepared for. The brain likes plan A, doesn't like to go to plan B. And so it takes time.
I love giving people that grace and permission and just awareness that like your brain is not the same as it was yesterday, you know, and that is not just like that is not a momentary thing or like a several day thing. That can last a while.
Yes, it can last several years. Because think of it. If you were in an accident and you had your leg amputated and maybe half of your body, let's just say you're functioning limbs on half of your body, how long is it going to take you to learn to function with half a body of limbs?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not an overnight process. And the real trick with widowhood is that everyone thinks, well, if I make it through the first year, I'll wake up on day 366 and everything will be fine. I get a prize and it's all done.
Yeah.
And it's not. So year two is the brain going, wait a minute. Like year two, when you get to the anniversary, your brain, the first year, your brain's like, whew, we made it. Mm-hmm. The second year, your brain's like, wait, what? Mm-hmm. Wait. And then the third year, your brain begins to say, oh yeah, okay, this is what we do now, which is why it takes years.
Which is frustrating and freeing. You know, It's like, it's going to take years. And
yes,
it's going to take years. Like, I'm going to let that be. And that doesn't mean I'm stuck in it. I'm just, I'm going to move through it with that. Okay, we're going to go to a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to keep talking about that, from that plan A to plan B, and how you embrace plan B, develop plan B, get to the idea that you even are willing to have a plan B, all of the plan B, of life moment from Navigating Widowhood. All right, so we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
I love it.
Welcome back to Sorting Through Life with Colleen Waterston, brought to you by Space by Space Organizing. I am here today with Julie Martella of Navigating Widowhood. And in our first segment, we started to talk about what happens in the brain and in your life when you're navigating the loss of a partner in particular is what your offerings focus on. In your situation, you lost your husband. That is the topic, but it's related to so many. The loss of a vision that you had for yourself, that life is not going to go that certain way, but specifically in the loss in death. We're going to talk about that, navigating widowhood. But there was this, I heard years ago, Joe Biden was speaking to an audience of people who had also lost people in their lives, family members. And, he, horribly lost his wife and young children and lost a son in later years. I mean, it's just really a sad story of life with a lot of loss. And he advised this group to get a calendar, that someone had advised him of this. And he advised them, get a calendar and write, it was like 1 through 5. 1 is like, I hate life. I hate the world. This is the worst. I don't want to get out of bed. Everything is dark. And 5 is like, I'm doing well. Like, life's okay. Like, I got this. I'm happy. I had a good day. And then the in between of that. And he said to do this because for him, there were always days throughout the grieving and healing process that were ones, that went back, months later, a long time after the initial grief, that went back to that same grief and just that feeling of utter and total loss. But he said that when you look at it from a calendar point of view, you can see like there's less ones, there's actually more threes. Like, okay, I'm actually feeling consistently a little bit better, like if I'm mapping this out, I'm on the up. And it gave space for those days to be like, I know this is going to pass, but this is where I am today. So speak to that and that like timeline, the timeline of grief. You don't just get a trophy when you're in, you survived.
Right. No, grief, we call those grief waves. And that the calendar is an amazing tool because it's perfectly correct. In the beginning, right? If 1 is the worst and 5 is the best, most days are ones. And what happens is people, when you have the visual of the calendar, that talks to your brain. Again, that goes back to the brain because without the calendar, people say, my life is a 1. And so the calendar gives you a way to challenge that and say, is it though? Like, is every single day in this entire year a 1? And people will start looking at it and saying, oh, you know what? I did have a good day. And it shows your brain you're getting better. And we call those grief waves because I am 9 years out now. I'm like an old lady widow. Well, I'm the big sister. Widow. And I'm 9 years out. So I don't have a lot of 1 days anymore, but they certainly come back. And when they come back, I tell myself, oh, this must be a grief wave. How big is it going to be? Right. My daughter got married a couple years ago, not having her dad there, not having him walk her down the aisle. My other daughter walked me down the aisle. That was a big one. That was like a tsunami grief wave. But most of the time, it's a 2-foot wave and it hits you and it knocks you off your feet for just a second. You take a breath and you're like, all right, I'm okay. And that might take a couple of days, but it is not the weeks and weeks and weeks of the beginning. It really, Colleen, it's really true that time softens the pain. The pain never goes away. The longing for that person never goes away, but it becomes softer. So,
it's a great analogy. And I even think if you do have an agenda that you are a physical paper person and you write your things, if you have, a circle that you put in the corner of every day, and then if you really want to study it, what were you doing the day that was a 3? Are you around friends more and that helps with those 3s? Are you getting out of the house more? It's like you might be able to see the patterns of activity and of things that you're doing in your life that help encourage the higher level days for yourself.
Yes. And you have to recognize that there are just going to be some days, anniversaries, anniversaries of different things. Those are going to trigger, those are just going to be tough days. But when you know they're coming, you can say, all right, I need to be around some family or my friends a little bit more. I need to get out. I need to make sure I'm eating right or I'm exercising or I'm sleeping because these days are coming. So you can prepare for them.
Okay, so this is also great. And we are on a show that is largely about home organizing. And you have an episode of your podcast, episode 11, called Dismantling the Shrine, saying goodbye to your loved ones' things. And in your book, on page 9, you say, how could someone lighten the load of possessions, yet still keep the essence of their loved one? And then later on 47, you say, letting go of possessions may feel like letting go of a chapter in your life and acknowledging the finality of your loss. In episodes 24 through 26, the titles of those are How Do I Apply Strategy to My Home? So going back to your strategist.
Yes.
The next is Why Do I Feel Overwhelmed When I Organize? And then you have the organizing process. In your book on page 56, you say learning to declutter and prioritize what truly matters to you and practicing gratitude for what you have will change your life. So I want to talk about the home and how you can make space and clear. And also amidst that, your chapter 41 is beware of the minefields. And you
Yes.
talk about the bedroom, the office, the personal stuff, sentimental stuff, and everything. Anybody organizing would tell you, any strategy out there, Marie Kondo, the Swedish death cleaning, any strategy is going to say, don't start with the sentimental. That is time consuming, and time consuming is not necessarily motivating. Clothes are the easiest, is often what they say, the big things. But so beware of the minefields. But I want to hear from you about someone who's done this yourself, someone who, you, Julie, coach so many people and help strategize with so many people and consult with so many people on how to work through things in their house, like entire rooms, collections. So just tell us what we need to know about this. If there's a widow out there who's like sitting in their stuff, looking around their house, like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is the feeling. And so I want to start with the obvious question is, why do I feel so overwhelmed when I organize? And the answer is because after your person dies, every object becomes it's not just what do I do with my highlighter pen. It becomes, this was George's highlighter pen that he used the day before he died. So it becomes a memory, it becomes a decision, it becomes an emotion, it becomes fear. If I throw this away, am I throwing away George? So every decision becomes weighted, which is why I called the book The Weight of Our Things. And when everything is heavy, it makes it hard to organize. But I also want to say that I 125%, like, this is my soapbox all day long. Organizing your home, going through your home after the loss of a loved one, is grief playing out in the physical world. So you can go to therapy, you can go to coaching, you can go to your groups, and you're doing all the things. But if you do not address your home, you will not move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because the home that you had and the home that you have, it reflected the life that you had in the past. So once the person dies, this is now the home of your past. Going through your home and making the decisions about, what do I need for today's version of myself? What do I need for future, right? For future Julie? What does the rooms, do they need to be rearranged? Do I need to go through the closets, right? And that is grief playing out. But the reason it's so powerful is that every single object that you go through, even if it's the shoes, you are having to say goodbye to every single memory that's attached. The work boots. My husband was a farmer. He's got his dirty, crusty, fallen apart work boots. Goodbye. Thank you. And so Marie Kondo talks about, thank you for your service, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and the problem with Marie Kondo is that she says, keep what sparks joy. We want to keep everything. We want to keep everything. So you look at, I'm saying goodbye 1,000 times in tiny little ways. And then I'm looking at, what do I need to be sustainable now, to be sustainable today? And that may look different. You may have hospital equipment in your house. You may have a house that's too big. Maybe your spouse liked to collect a lot of things and there's too much stuff in your house. So you have to consider, what am I going to do? What does the future look like, and my space within this future that I am going to inhabit, because I have the privilege of being alive?
I have a question as a professional organizer.
Yes.
And I'm, being brought in to help people through their stuff. And sometimes a lot of times, like, even if it's just somebody who's, everybody's alive and well, and the plan is to stay in the exact same house for decades,
Yes.
and we're just
Yes.
coming in to create a better system.
Yes.
I can feel the clients that are kind of excited by my presence and the process, and they're like, oh, that goes. And they'll ask me, am I doing okay? How am I doing? Am I
Yeah.
getting rid of enough?
Yeah.
How am I doing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I constantly say, I'm not anti-stuff. I'm anti-stuff getting in the way of your life. Like if you have a
Absolutely.
huge closet and you know where everything is and you like dressing from all of these clothes, great. If you're like,
Yeah.
I really want a capsule wardrobe, I only want to have things that I know look amazing on me, and I
Right.
just want to go to that and I want to simplify, well, then we're going to do the process for that goal. But with that, like I'll sometimes stop people if I feel that they're kind of excited by me and I feel like they're maybe getting rid of too much, or I'm like, today's not the only day you can get rid of stuff because,
Yes.
once it does
Yes.
leave, if it
Yeah.
comes out with me, it's not coming back. And
Yeah.
so it's like there's been one or two times where someone's like, did we get rid of that yet? And I'm like, I haven't dropped off the load or we haven't, so it's like I can get that back. But like I really try to, be slow enough and intentional enough in that
Yeah.
process where it's like, I'm not going to throw this. And to this point, I always say, I don't throw things away for you because I don't know if it's the last highlighter that your husband used.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I was in someone's home the other day and there was a post-it note that had like I took a picture of it, but it was like a little smiley face, but it looked like just, little dabs on a post-it.
Yeah.
Man, his mom died 15 years ago, and that she actually left that note when she stayed
Oh.
at his place 15 years ago, and he found
Yeah.
it in the moving process. And I was like, this is exactly why I don't throw things
Yeah.
away for people,
Yeah.
because that moment, and I think he did eventually throw it away, but like it still delighted him. And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want the process to delight
Yes.
people and not miss those opportunities to be delighted by that note from your mom.
Yeah.
But my question in all of that as a professional is, what's the pace? Like,
Yeah.
should I be like, okay, it all goes in a week, and like, or should I be giving pushback on somebody if they're like, I'm ready to let it go? And this could be, for a parent, lost another parent. And it's like, is there a right or wrong? Are there people who are like, I got rid of everything in a week and I regret
Yeah.
it? Like from
Yeah.
your exposure to this, like timeline wise. And I think I'm asking because I think without knowing, we kind of have like an implicit judgment on others of like,
Yeah.
you did this too fast or
Yeah.
you're taking too long.
Yeah.
And so what's your very well researched understanding around that so that we non-widowers can be more sensitive and more helpful
Right.
regardless?
Right. So you bring up a couple of really good points. And the most important point is that somewhere in our society, we've equated organizing with purging, right?
Mhm.
Well, I'm going to organize, getting rid of everything. But that's not what organizing is, right? As an organizer, organizing with widows and widowers and people who've lost someone is best approached as a thinning process, not as a purging process. So what you have to do when you begin to work with a client, or if you are a client and you're like, where do I begin? You need to begin by looking at what's going on in my life. What is my goal? I call it your big why. What is your big why? Why are you doing this? So some people, there's two different situations here. You have some people that have to get out of their house. They might have been renters. They might not be able to afford the home after loss is a huge financial disruptor. So if you have someone that actually needs to leave the home, then that's a very different process than someone who is in the home and says, it's just not working for me. And
Mhm.
so when someone, so party A, the ones that have to leave, we know what needs to be done. We're thoughtfully sorting, we're boxing what needs to be boxed, we're determining what's of value, we're downsizing for the new space. Group B, the ones that are in the home, then we start looking at a thinning process. And what will happen, instead of looking at the whole home as an entirety, widow people will start looking at, I want my grandkids to come over and spend the night. I think I want to take that sewing room and turn it into the extra bedroom. And when that happens, then they're like, I'm ready to organize, but it's not the whole house. They may not be ready to organize the whole house, that room. So we're thinning, we're hitting it strategically. And that will happen in different times. My husband, when I opened his drawers, so the drawers where the clothes were, it was literally an electrical jolt every time I opened the drawer. And so I thought, I can't handle this. I gotta get rid of this. So my kids, oddly enough, my kids were supposed to go to camp 2 weeks after he died. So on week 3. So I knew week 3, I got to get rid of these clothes because I can't handle them. I didn't do the whole house, but I thinned down the clothes. And I went through the clothes and I thought about what are my kids going to want? Right? I can't just get rid of everything. I'm going to regret it, right? The goal is not to get to 0. The goal is to get it to a manageable load. So easy stuff. Underwear, nobody wants your underwear. Throw them away, right? Although, if you are a man and your lady spouse, your lady person died, the bras, yes, those can go somewhere. They can go to a women's shelter. They can go to Goodwill. They can whatever, but not the chonies. Socks, old beat up greasy work jeans, the shoes, those things were easy. Those things were light. However, once we got to the t-shirts, my kids, we didn't want the new shirts he just bought. We wanted the old shirts that were greasy and they had welding burns in them and they were worn out. That's what we wanted. And so I made sure that I kept those things. Yeah, I kept those things. I thinned it down so that I didn't have such a jolt. And if I didn't know what to do and I wasn't sure, I put them into timeout, which is one of my favorite things to do. Timeout is just like your kids, just like a kid, like, hey, you need a break. If I don't know what to do with this pile of sweatshirts, I'm putting them into timeout and putting them into a box. I'm writing sweatshirts, the date, and then I need to revisit it. And then I get to keep going. And I know that I'm not quite sure what to do, but I put them in timeout.
But you've done something, and
I've done something.
Yeah, you've done something, and you have cleared space so that you can start thinking about that plan B, that how you want to use the space. And you didn't do it by, setting fire to what is no longer, needed. You just placed it to the side and said, we'll get there. Okay.
Yes.
We're going to take a super quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about how people can support navigating widowhood. So we'll be right back on Sorting Through Life, and that's that. All right, welcome back to Sorting Through Life with Colleen Waterston, brought to you by Space Organizing, my Twin Cities-based home organizing business. And today I'm here with Julie Martella, author, coach, consultant, podcaster. I mean, if you want to learn about how to navigate widowhood and navigate grief, look her up and find many of her resources. I've referenced episodes and chapters of her book and podcast, and they are bite-sized and very, very easy to navigate. So I definitely recommend going and just it is so not overwhelming to go through the resources that you have to offer. And so I think especially for people whose brains are not operating at full capacity, they are designed with that in mind, I would say. But I want to talk to you about how to create your dream team, which is your episode 47 and your chapter 36. And what I think is important for this, there's a lot designed for that you have for a widow to read through and to listen to and to figure out how to get through something. And if they want that strategy in their head, that professional strategist, they can call you, they can schedule time on your calendar and actually have you as their life coach and have you as their consultant. But other people might be listening and maybe a friend's spouse passed, or maybe a sibling's spouse passed, or, they're in the company of somebody who has experienced loss. And what you talk about in this dream team is like roles, and you list them out. I want you to list out all or some of them in the time that we have, but then also help us understand how is the best way to present ourselves to somebody in a way that's supportive or not. I know your second book really speaks to this and gives people like actual words to use and actual words not to use. So if you can just like give us my friend's spouse died, now what? And, what roles these people can play, but also how we can insert ourselves or not to the best of our abilities in support of the person who's experiencing this.
Yes, I absolutely can. If I forget something, you have so many good nuggets in there. So, all right. So we start with the situation, right? First of all, there is no grief Olympics. No one gets a gold medal for grieving. So it doesn't matter if it's spousal loss, child loss, sibling loss, parent loss, friend loss. You lose a dear friend. That is a heartbreaking experience. Loss is loss. And in the organizing world, we are left with, now I need to go through their stuff and I don't know what to do. So this is when the concept of the dream team comes into play. And the thing I love about the dream team is the dream team is basically a safety net. It is because we talked about that the executive functioning part of the brain has been taken offline. So what the dream team does is the dream team is your external executive functioners, and they provide support. So this is support in life. This is support in organizing. So when I talk about the dream team, I talk about, who do you want? If you get to make like when we were in third grade playing dodgeball and we got to pick our team, who do you want on the team? Who do you not want on the team? Because there's definitely both. So on the team, on the dream team, we need a project manager. We need someone. When I come to you, Colleen, I say, Colleen, I'm ready to clean out this sewing room because I want to make an extra bedroom so my friends can come and visit. I need a project manager. I am not up to the task, but you are. So the project manager is going to coordinate the project. Then we're going to need, all right, so the project manager is going to say, all right, when do you want to do this? Let's bring some people in. So then we have people such as the runner. The runner, if I say, I'm done with this, the runner takes it out. The runner runs it. The decision maker, that is like your body double. That is your external hard drive. When I say, I just don't know what to do with this book collection, the decision maker can say, well, what do you think? What are the questions that you have? Do you have a favorite book? They can help you make a decision. The cleaner, right? The cleaner helps clean up. They're tidying up, they're vacuuming, they're wiping things down, they're organizing things. The organizer is keeping track of what went where. There may be a master list with notes on it. Your tech person, everyone needs a tech person on their dream team. The tech person gets to help you because when our brain is offline, we do not know how to use technology and we're overwhelmed.
We might not know how to use technology anyway. And then when when it's offline, good luck.
Yes. And I think the most important person, honestly, on the dream team is the team mom. We need someone to say, you're doing a good job. Or do you need a break? Do you need a snack? Do you need, you need an apple juice and a Go-Gurt, basically. We need a team mom is your encourager. You're doing a good job. Now,
and I see that so much play out. Like I can just envision it. And I think it's so nice to also have people know, like, to invite people like, hey, can you be the runner?
Yes.
That's all I need from you. I don't need your opinion on the books. I don't, and we do this on an organizing job where people have different roles. And it's like, I constantly refer to my right hand, Alicia, who's just really good at meticulous. But it's like, she's not the project manager. She doesn't want to be the project manager, but she wants to be told to go in a room and do something for hours and like make it amazing. So it's like giving people those specific roles relieves them of the burden in their brain of like, I should be doing more. It's like, hey, I have some friends coming over. They're going to help me for a day. Can you at 1 o'clock bring us lunch? Can you be the team mom of the day? Can you bring us lunch? Can you bring us, some fun, healthy drinks with electrolytes, like giving someone a task and they're like, yes, I can do that. Like, you need that from me.
Yes.
I can do that. Yes. So like giving that specificity, I think and also what you're saying about like identifying that team so that when you're like, I need to move this thing, I'm so overwhelmed by it, you already have the person like written down. Oh, I need to move something. I call Ted, Ted's my mover. He's going to come over, so it's like, you're taking out the decision-making every time you need to move something.
Yes. Yes. And when someone's grieving, on the flip side, if you say, man, I really want to help. I really want to help my friend Colleen, but I don't know what to do. Look at, what are you naturally good at? If you're naturally good at numbers, maybe you get to come over and say, hey, do you need help with your QuickBooks or balancing your checkbook or paying bills this month? I'll come over and sit with you and make sure that gets done. Right?
Do you need help going through all the accounts and make sure that you've
Yes.
paid the bills and that,
Yes.
do you want me to help you make a spreadsheet for your house?
Yes.
Like, and
Yes.
asking, like, how did you manage that before?
Yeah.
Or how did your husband or how did your wife,
Yeah.
like, who did that? And is there something within that that's overwhelming you that I might be able to take off for you?
Yes.
Can I do that for you?
Yeah.
Would that be
Yeah.
helpful? Okay, now
Yes.
you have the bench warmers, and just, we're down to a few minutes. We could talk for days, but the bench warmers.
Yes. The bench warmers are the people who are going to impede the progress of your project. And your bench warmers, I'm going to go through them very quickly. The bench warmers, if you're doing a project at home, if you have the gossip come over, that person is not coming over to help you. That person is coming out to check out what's going on so they can go post it online or tell their 23 closest friends.
Julie's doing terrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Julie's a mess. Right?
Wow. She's never going to get through this.
We have the whiner, right? The whiner wants to come over and see you, but they want to whine about their life. I don't care, right? When we're organizing, we're grieving, we don't care. We have this job to do. So you don't want the whiner there. You don't want the hoarder there. The hoarder's a horrible person to have. You say, what am I going to do with the books or the pen? And the hoarder's like, oh, you can't get rid of that. That has sentimental value, right? Do not want that person there. And the last person I'm going to talk about, well, you've got the critic, you've got the controller. The controller loves to say, well, this is how I would do it. We don't care how you would do it. It just needs to be done. So you don't want those people there. And the last person that you don't want there is the person, it might be a really close person, but it's a mourner. If you had someone who was super close to the person that you lost, their prefrontal cortex is also not working. Mm-hmm. And they are not in the position to make decisions. So we need to give them special jobs. We need to say, can you go down and tidy the Tupperware, right? You get them out of the way so that you can keep the job moving forward.
And I like this because I don't think it, we've got to wrap up, but I don't think anything that you do, it just gives you so many tangible ways to work through this. It's not about putting more burden on yourself. It's using the tools that you've developed and these strategies to actually make it all more easy, once and for all, moving forward, to always designate so that every situation is not new. But finding you is navigatingwidowhood.com. Yes. If you're in the Twin Cities and you need support working through someone's stuff and you're looking for help, space-by-space-organizing.com. Give me a call, 612-747-1331, and we can help figure out your big goals and your timeline and, take these strategies and implement them in your situation. But Julie, I just appreciate you being here and sharing from your experience and just helping people to really figure out how to sort through their life. So thank you for being here, AM 950. We'll see you next time.